After an awful lot of overnight rain and a very wet week in Japan, the teams in the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia's second event of 2022 are about to face a circuit that is certainly damp offline, but at the moment does give optimism that it might get drier as qualifying is about to get underway. Welcome everybody to Suzuka for Q1 for the GT4 class. Qualifying about to get underway, split between GT4 and GT3. David Addison trackside, and we are about to have the cars venture out for the first of these effectively 4 qualifying periods. You've got the grids for the 2 races being established right now. 1 driver, 1 session, and the driver that qualifies starts the race for which they have set the time. And therefore what we have now will be the GT4 element of the grid for race 1, and for GT4 Q2 that's race 2, and then the same again applied for GT3. Much stronger entry this weekend as the world starts to open up a little bit more in Asia, so more crews are here, and not only do we have lots of optimism in GT4 because there's a good entry of GT4 cars, unlike Sepang where travel rather restricted the entry there, but also we have the new Japan Cup, and that has brought out a lot of teams racing for this championship within a championship. We've got 4 back-to-back Japanese races before Indonesia at the end of the year. So there is Suzuka, followed by Fuji, followed by Sugo, and then there is the Okayama race to come as well before the end of the year. So all those Japanese teams Japanese teams are able to fight for this Japan Cup. First sector of the lap pretty slippery, we understand, but it should get drier, and therefore in Q2 for GT3, right at the very end, assuming no more rain comes, then it should get faster and faster. Yesterday, just looking at the overall times, first of all, as the cars are about to venture out onto the circuit, it was the Yogibo Racing Ferrari that topped free practice. That was the official practice and the paid bronze test as well. That actually turned out to be slightly quicker. The Car Guy Racing Ferrari of Takeshi Kimura and Kai Cozzolino fastest on 2 minutes 1, whereas 2 minutes 2 for the Yogibo Racing Ferrari of Naoki Yokomitsu and Kyoto Fujinami. Fujinami, the man to watch, one of the men to watch, Super GT champion from a couple of years ago. And it is a quality entry, as we'll come to during the course of the sessions. You can see then how damp the circuit is in certain parts, but it is getting drier all the time. The drivers then lining themselves up ready to venture out onto the circuit. It might be that the really clever teams go out perhaps a little bit later in a session just to let others dry the road, but with only 15 minutes per session, you don't get a lot of time, of course, in all of this, and therefore you can ill afford to squander the amount of laps you have, especially when it's over 2 minutes. The GT4 cars yesterday, if you take the official practice session as the benchmark, 2 minutes 13 for the Toyota GR Supra of Motoharu Sato and Katsuyuki Hironaka by way of a guide. So GT4 cars, we know, aren't as quick as GT4. They're going to get fewer laps in, potentially, as you look down into the pit lane there. Number 12 is the Supra, and it will be Motoharu Sato that will go first. The car set ready to go. As ever in the Asian market, really spectacular liveries that we enjoy. Number 4 is Kazuhiro Sakai. He shares with Masaki Fuji in the Mercedes AMG GT4. That's the Comet Racing entry. We have got cars lined up at the end of the pit lane, and any moment then that green light should go on. The fast lane is now open. We're about half a minute away. Mercedes versus Toyota versus McLaren, really, within GT4, but there is an extra car, which is the BMW M2. And that is a TC invitation class car for Takayuki Kinoshita and Sonako Jukichu, effectively the reigning GT4 champions from 2019. Of course, we haven't had a championship for the last 2 years because of the pandemic and the restrictions to travel. And of course, although this is a regional championship, it's a very big region, and it does involve an awful lot of flying for teams, for drivers, for officials, and with the restrictions in this part of the world, it's just not been possible. But it's great to be back on track, and so the 2 races that we have will be rounds 3 and 4 of the championship as the green lights go on. And out tiptoe the cars, ready for Q1. It's the McLaren then of Yuko Suzuki that is the first one out. And that's going to be the pioneer here to discover where all the damp patches are as the drivers head then onto the circuit through the first corner, as it's creatively known. And you can see how tentative drivers are being. number 55 venturing out to the Team Scala Mercedes of Jun Tashiro. He will go first. So it's one driver for the 15 minutes. As far as the championship is concerned, well, it's absolutely fascinating for GT4 because we didn't get a GT4 entry in Sepang, and therefore all bets are off. It really is going to be interesting to see who comes out on top over the course of this weekend, who's going to be the pace-setting team, driver combination within GT4. As ever in the championship, there's also the success penalties to factor in. Well, it doesn't work yet in GT4 because, as I say, they haven't had a race, but it will work for GT3. And when we get to the GT3 first race, we've got the second and third place cars from race 2 in Sepang having to carry the time penalties just to take in the pit stop window. Again, we'll worry about when we get into the races proper tomorrow and this afternoon, because it's one race per day. So as you look there at 55, presses on and growls its way up the hill. That car shortly to start a flying lap. Number 55 Mercedes then, which has the wheel of it for Q1, Jun Tashiro, who's been a regular and very successful driver within Lamborghini Super Trofeo in the Asian market for many, many seasons. They're another of the Mercedes that is going to be on for a good result this weekend. Brian Lee at the wheel of it. Brian Lee, who's been another mainstay of what is now GT World Challenge Asia, Fanatec GT. But Brian Lee, who came out of the Macau Road Sport Challenge, raced in Carrera Cup in Japan, so he knows the circuit, but has spent the last 3 seasons that he's been able to race within what used to be GT Series Asia, now Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, and he's been a regular in Mercedes as well, so he knows the car, and I suspect Brian Lee will be another driver that could be fighting for the class pole position. Hideto Yasuoka is his co-driver, that car from the GTO Racing Team stable. So session has been declared wet, no real surprise. What that does is put the onus on the teams now to make the choice about tyres. And you can see how tentative people are being on this early stage. If you have a look on that timing tower, a white little stripe means that it's an outlap, a green is a personal best, and a purple is an absolute best. They're not meaning much at the moment, with everybody having only really just gone out onto the circuit. A yellow will mean that they're slower in that sector than previously, but it's greens and purples that we need to be getting excited about. But really on their second or third flying laps at the moment, with everybody venturing out for the first time, of course these are going to be greens and purples because there's nothing to gauge it against. This part of the circuit looking much, much wetter. The Suzuka circuit, of course, which is 3.6 miles long, that's 5.8 kilometres. A bit hillier than you think as well. Yesterday, late afternoon, incredibly humid, and then it had yet another downpour, absolutely threw it down at about 6 o'clock this morning. But it does dry pretty quickly, but the driver's hoping it dries even faster as up to the start. A big, big slide there for the Mercedes. I was going to say onto a flying lap goes, but then getting all sideways went the Mercedes. That car onto a quick lap now, but surviving the slide. That was Hiroaki Hatano, I think I'm right in saying, who got it all crossed up, survived the moment, but battles on. In the traffic, you see the reigning champions, and it is Takayuki Kinoshita at the wheel of the TC Invitation BMW. It's a good little car, that. It's perhaps more touring car orientated than you might anticipate, but it goes strongly and was really rapid yesterday. So there is the BM, which is in the TC Invitation class, operated by BMW Team Studi times CSL, and Kinoshita at the wheel. It also makes a good noise, that car. You will see as well those cars that are eligible for the Japan Cup will come to as well during the course of the session. So Kinoshita, with the clock running, comes towards us. This is a proper flying lap. He's done his out lap, so this is now one that's going to be relevant. The car is a kind of GT4 class, but as I say, it runs within this TC Invitation class. There is a championship in Europe. Italy has one, for example, for the BMW M2s. Luca Rangoni, one of the stars of it. But Kinoshita then into the Casio Triangle. and we'll head up towards the line, where now he tries to take on number 55, which has gone to the top of the times. That is Jun Tashiro's Mercedes, the Team Scala car. 2 minutes 29.961. And then Kinoshita goes even faster in the BMW to get himself up to the top. So Tashiro had done a 2:31, but now it's a 2:29. The Toyota Supra, looking resplendent in its bright red livery, comes now up towards the timing line. This is the Motoharu Sato car, and that goes third fastest, 2:34, 2 minutes 34.568, but that is almost instantly demoted by number 33 that breaks the beam next, the Hiroaki Hatano Mercedes that had its big slide. Off the road goes the Supra, back on again. So 8 minutes on the clock as you watch the Supra hustle on. So number 12, the Koshido racing car, Motoharu Sato at the wheel of it, the Silver Am entry. Fourth in class. Brian Lee yet to get to the end of his lap as the next to the Mercedes here presses on. That is the Kazuhiro Sakai car. But it is Jun Tashiro then, looking strong at the moment as the Mercedes heads now towards us. 55, Tashiro at the wheel, 2 purples, so getting quicker and quicker in the sectors all the time. Right, so Kinoshita's time to beat, although you could argue this is the fastest GT4 car anyway, because it's a genuine GT4 Silver Am entry rather than being in that invitation class. 2:29.9 is what we're aiming for then now, as Jun Tashiro comes towards the end of the lap. The Team Scala car about to break the beam. This does look good as the road dries all the time, and a very good lap, 2 minutes 18.796, so 11 seconds quicker than anybody else. Jun Tashiro then doing a really good effort. Tashiro down towards the first corner and looking quicker still. Now he's got the road to himself as well, so Tashiro on an absolute mission right now. The Mercedes, the regular Lamborghini Super Trofeo driver, snakes its way through the snake. 33 in the meantime is also still pressing on. Now this Mercedes has got Hiroaki Hatano at the wheel, the Team GMB car. And that into the Casio triangle now, fourth, but as the road dries, a 2:32.5 that it did on its first lap from Hatano, ought to be able to go faster still. Towards the beam it comes. So looking at the clock, 2:27, 2:28, it's going to be still quite a long way down relative to the new top time. That was a 2:27.876, so it is an improvement, but that's round about 9 seconds off where it needs to be. So one or two of the drivers being a lot more confident in these conditions. The McLaren in the meantime here, which is the sole McLaren in GT4, Yuko Suzuki's car for the CREF Motorsport team. That currently third in class. Suzuki has done a 2:27.486. Should, I would have thought, be able to go yet better on his next lap. McLaren has proved to be a very user-friendly car in GT4 around the globe. Going quicker still, though, is Jun Tashiro in the first sector, number 55 Mercedes. He's now done a 61.9 within sector 1, so you see the little purple stripe. Up to second has got Brian Lee now, number 14. So Brian Lee in the GTA racing team, blue Mercedes, up to second fastest. Tashiro, though, is getting quicker and quicker all the time. Here is Suzuki coming then for, at the moment, an improvement in the first sector. Turns his way then now around the 130R, and then from the hairpin accelerates towards the end of the lap. 130R beckons. Tashiro's gone faster still, 2 minutes 17.192. Right, out of 130R, then that short run towards the Casio triangle, and then the downhill run towards the end of the lap. Suzuki stands on the brakes. He's got to be aiming for a 2:17. He's going to miss that by some margin, isn't he? gap is coming down between the top two. It's now down to 4.7 seconds. Kinoshita in the BMW has gone second on a 2:21.9. Suzuki breaks the beam and does a 2:23.6. As you see, that puts him fourth fastest. So he is bringing down the time. He is getting quicker, but the Jun Tashiro time, 2 minutes 17.192, an absolute honey. That's the car that was second, is now third. Brian Lee, the GTO Racing Mercedes. But even though he's third, he's still 5.6 seconds back from the class pole position here. Brian Lee way out wide there, exploring all of the curve on the outside of the racetrack. Makes that climb up the hill and then comes under the gantry on the run up now towards 130R. So Brian Lee is pressing on this lap down in the middle sector, but he was good in the first. So there might be an improvement in the offing. It rather depends how good he is through the Casio triangle here. Brakes as late as he dares up the curb, which again, in a sense, you've got to try and avoid really, because they're going to be wet and slippery still. The road dries out faster than the concrete curbing does. Up towards the timing line now comes Brian Lee. The time that he's got to try and aim for is something below 2 minutes 20. He does a 2:21.123 to go second there. 3.9 seconds adrift of now Jun Tashiro in the Mercedes that is the fastest. So Tashiro it is from Lee, making it a Mercedes 1-2. The BMW third in the hands of Takayuki Kinoshita. And then fourth fastest now is the McLaren with Yuko Suzuki at the wheel of it. Right, across the line once more goes Tashiro, and he's into the 2:16s now, 2:16.138. So we were getting 2:13s out of the cars yesterday. The one that's kind of not really woken up this morning as yet is the number 12 Supra, which is struggling a little bit. The Koshido racing car, Motoharu Sato at the wheel of it, but it's not really come alive. There's 2 minutes and change left on the clock as Kinoshita now goes back up to second, 2 minutes 20.777. Kinoshita in the BMW then, as you look at Jun Tashiro pressing on. Again, he's managed to buy the road to himself. And let's see what he can do in the first sector. As the road dries, can we get him into the 2:15s before the very end? I think the next session ought to be quicker still, but it'll be an interesting benchmark here to see what the teams can offer up by the very end of Q1. A little bit of traffic has been encountered further down. We've got 8 cars on the road, and yet 2 have managed to get themselves together here coming out of the triangle. Towards the line now comes the Mercedes there, which is Hatano's car, number 33, 2:23 he has done. So it's an improvement. Number 33 Mercedes goes by, and behind is number 4, another of the Comet Racing offerings, Kazuhiro Sakai, but Sakai struggling a little bit. Right, the fastest car in the session has done another absolute best in Sector 1. So number 55, which is the very rapid Jun Tashiro Mercedes, looking like it's going to go quicker again. Brian Lee, who's been elbowed back down to 4th, is about to come through and hopefully improve, but he's not going to be able to get anywhere near Tashiro's time. He's a 2:18, so 2.5 seconds adrift. He's getting there. Having said all of that, of course, qualifying only gives you a grid. It's not the most important part of the weekend, but it does at least give you bragging rights, as Tashiro then down in the middle sector of this lap. So he's lost a little bit of time in the middle sector. I say a little bit of time, he's lost 9 seconds. So has Tashiro had a moment? Is he going to complete the lap? If it's a problem, he might bail for the pit lane. If he's had a moment, he'll perhaps regroup. The flag is imminent, so actually I don't think he's going to get another lap in. It'll be the checkered flag potentially for Tashiro this time. Yeah, there he is, slowly to the pits. Now, he may have been told by the team, you know, bail, you're not going to get another lap out of it. It may be that there was a problem that caused that drama in the middle sector. We'll see whether the car is able to go diving out straight away. But at the end then of Q1 for GT4, it is number 55, Jun Tashiro, that is the fastest. 2 minutes 16.138 from Brian Lee, who did a 2:18.629, but that might yet change. And then third fastest, number 71, the Akiland Racing Toyota, Masayoshi Oyama, and he has now just gone second, in fact. So Oyama does a 2:17.573. That car creeping into the mix all the way through. Brian Lee down to third, and he's done a 2 minutes 18.629 as his best, but he might go quicker on this last lap. There, getting out of the car then, is Jun Tashiro, the man that's fastest. And there's no immediate sense of urgency around that car, suggesting that there was a problem. It might just have been that they decided to abort the lap, getting in early, and therefore have the time available to do the driver change, to do any work to the car before Tatsuya Tanagawa gets on board. And again, you've only got this very brief 7-minute break between the two elements of qualifying for the classes. If you save yourself some time by aborting the session a little bit early, so taking the flag in the pits, you don't need to worry about an in-lap, which eats into that 7-minute period. You've got a bit more time to do whatever work you need. It might just be that there's a tweak to the setup now that the road is drier. It might be that the tyre pressures need adjusting. All sorts of things that the teams might want to do and have a little bit more time now in which to do them before the next element of qualifying gets underway. So at the end of Q1, it is number 55 of Jun Tashiro that is the fastest. Tashiro doing a 2 minutes 16.138, and second fastest, number 71, the Toyota of Masayoshi Oyama, 2 minutes 17.573. Brian Lee third in the Mercedes, a further tenth of a second, nearly 2 tenths further back, and then down to fourth in the end, Takayuki Kinoshita's BMW, the invitation class car, that's in the 2 minutes 20s. Fifth fastest was the number 17 McLaren of Yuko Suzuki. Sixth fastest, number 33 Mercedes of Hiroaki Hatano. Seventh quickest, the rather troubled, for whatever reason, Supra that was good yesterday, Motoharu Sato, but I reckon that Katsuyuki Hironaka will be much quicker in that car. That car was seventh, and then eighth fastest, number 4 of Kazuhiro Sakai. And number 55, the quickest car of Jun Tashiro, is under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. So it didn't look as though he'd come in all that quickly. Maybe he was a bit late getting to the beam. Let's look at the highlights then of the session, which began with the McLaren first out, creeping onto the circuit. The car in the hands of Yuko Suzuki, and Suzuki tentatively venturing out onto the road just to explore the grip levels. He was the pioneer for the first part of the session. Everybody looking for a dry part of the circuit, and eventually they did find it, but the road getting quicker and quicker all the way through that session. But nobody wanting to press on, and the good thing was we didn't see anybody in strife, nobody going off the road. I think we had perhaps 1 or 2 running wide on occasions, but nobody being silly about it, or being respectful of the conditions this morning and the fact that you've got a busy day. There was a big snake, though, there from Tashiro's Mercedes. One of the early pace setters in that session, though, was in the BMW Takayuki Kinoshita, and as he made the climb under the bridge of the hairpin, the BMW finding a clearer and a drier element of the circuit before the run, then up towards Spoon Curve. As the road dried, so that car became a real factor, but then as the more aero-friendly GT shapes prevailed, so the BMW got knocked back down the order. The McLaren, in the meantime, pressed on nicely. Yuko Suzuki ending up 5th fastest, and becoming more and more confident in that car. And for many of the drivers still learning about the machinery, having got the opportunity to race at Sepang. And the more seat time they get, the faster they are going to become. The Casio Triangle waiting to catch out the unwary. Suzuki making a good run through on that lap and heading to the timing line. Put McLaren into the top 5 by the end of the second. In the background, there was the hard-charging Oyama Supra that would go second. Brian Lee was the next driver that started to pick up the attack, and Brian Lee yo-yoed between second and third through that session. The Mercedes did go quicker right at the very end, but stayed third, so he managed to shave the best part of a second off his earlier best lap time as the road continued to dry. Brian Lee ending up 3rd fastest, and now, of course, all the drivers hand over the cars to their co-drivers, ready for the second part of qualifying. The grid provisionally then for race 1, the GT4 element at least, now decided. So it was Jun Tashiro the fastest, although, as I say, under investigation now for speeding in the pit lane. Still no hint of sunshine at Suzuka, but at least it's not raining for the moment, and so one hopes the road will continue to dry as we get set for the second part of qualifying. 15 minutes once more for the GT4 cars, and then of course we've got the 2 equivalent sessions for GT3. So it's the same cars, but now with the change of driver, and they will be waved down the pit road very, very shortly. The fast lane is now open. So it won't be long before drivers make their way down to the lights, ready to head out onto the circuit. When they do so, 15 minutes once more, and we're now looking at the grid order provisionally, of course, for Q2. I say provisionally because if there are penalties, it could be that they come in the form of grid drops, but fingers crossed there'll be nothing like that. So the teams on the radio from the race director being told now to make their way down the pit road. They're all on slick tyres, I hasten to add. I mean, although it is a damp circuit, it's certainly not wet enough for wet tyres to be needed. It is the Pirelli slick on which people are running, and of course the more you can work them and get the temperature in, the better they will be. They'll be better again in this second part of qualifying now that the road is that little bit drier. So by the time we get to Q2 for GT3, we should be looking at much better lap times, assuming that we don't get any further rain. So that's the pit straight, the downhill fast section, and we await then the second part of qualifying to get underway for the teams. The countdown continuing, and the session due to start now. In fact, the green light is on, so the team's not taking the advantage as yet of sending a car out. Now, it could be that because in a number of cases it's the quicker driver to do Q2, some of the teams are quite confident to send the car out late, let others go out and drive the circuit again and set the benchmark time. But yes, there's not exactly a mad rush, is there, down the pit road? Finally, we are getting 1 or 2 cars to make their way down the pit lane. 55 then, the Mercedes that was quickest, the Team Scala car, now will be driven by Tatsuya Tanigawa, and it was a 2 minutes 16.138 as the benchmark time. So that's where Tanigawa is now kind of aiming for. Man from Osaka, Tatsuya Tanigawa, experienced driver going back to even FIA GT races in the late 1990s, but he's been a mainstay of Super GT and Asian Le Mans and even Japanese touring cars for many, many seasons, has been Tatsuya Tanigawa, the 50-year-old, so he becomes a man to watch in the Mercedes. We know it's a quick car. Now let's see whether the pace of the session as a whole is going to be quicker. I would imagine it will be, but we will make sure. As there onto the circuit goes now number 12, the Toyota, which has got Katsuyuki Hironaka at the wheel of it, and Hironaka was quick yesterday, the 40-year-old from Sapporo. He's raced in the World Endurance Championship. We've seen him in Formula 3, both in Britain and in the Euro Series. Go back, crikey, 20 years, he was 4th in Formula 3 at Macau. So an experienced and very rapid driver is Hironaka, and I suspect it was his times yesterday that rather flattered that car. So everybody then creeping out onto the circuit, and we'll start to see at the end of the next lap what people are able to do by way of a lap time. Out of the first corner there goes the BMW number 3, which has now got Sanako Jukichu at the wheel of it. It's good to have Jukichu and also Kinoshita back on the grid as reigning champions. Feels slightly odd to be talking about 2019 champions as reigning champions, but after a 2-year hiatus, the championship is back up and running. New title too. 33, Shinya Hosokawa now at the wheel. That should be a quick Mercedes as well, as up towards the end of the lap then comes the number 12 Supra of Katsuyuki Hironaka. And Shinya Hosokawa as well for Team GMB, and number 33 Mercedes, another driver that we've seen on occasions racing in the UK in Formula 3, but up towards the end of the lap. First of all, then comes number 12, and Sato then ready to break the beam. Motoharu Sato, sorry, I should say, now Hironaka at the wheel of that car goes through. Timing screen hasn't yet updated, but over the timing line now goes Katsuyuki Hironaka onto a flying lap. And again, he's got the road to himself. So we're looking at a lap time of better than a 2:16, really, to prove this is the quicker session. And I would have thought that Hironaka is able so to do. So all 7 have ventured out for Q2. The pace, though, that the Toyota is displaying already, suggesting now that Katsuyuki Hironaka is a man on a mission. This is a silver AM car. He is very much the silver compared to the AM that we saw earlier on, which isn't to go against the efforts of Motoharu Sato. It's just that Hironaka is that good bit quicker. Number 33 Mercedes here, Shinya Hosokawa up towards the end of the lap, but the Supra on an ever-drying road then setting the benchmark within the first sector. On Thursday in testing, a 2:11 was the best GT4 time, which was done by Hiroaki Hatano in number 33, where we saw Hatano in the first session, but actually he was rather struggling, wasn't he, in Q1? But a 2:11, if they can get to it, will be an absolute ripper time. Yesterday we got them in the 2:13s, but they're not going to get near that because it's still damp, as you can see. And I rather fear we're going to end up with rain affecting the races, whether it's because it's rained before the race or even during. We'll have to wait and see. But it's been so wet for the last week. Lots of parts of Japan have suffered heavy rain. Coming down from Tokyo yesterday, looking at the scenery, big flooded fields, and just about everywhere was blanketed in rain across the country. So it's certainly a wet period, and the team's having to cope with that and the unpredictability. And therefore, is it going to be a dry race, a mixed condition race? We won't know until we get going later on today. But right now, this looks like a good lap for Katsuyuki Hironaka coming to the end of it. It'll be the benchmark time for Hironaka. Ignore the fact that Sato's name is against it, because what the team haven't yet done is flick the switch in the car. The driver hasn't to put the new ID. A 2:24.7 then is the first offering, as over the line goes Sato's car, now with at the wheel of it Katsuyuki Hironaka. Hironaka then comes onto a proper flying lap now, his second shot. This is 33. So this is Shinya Hosokawa. I think it was, in fairness, probably him that did that 2:11, because Hosokawa is very much of the two, the silver, whereas Hatano is the AM. So I think it's probably likely to say that Hosokawa was doing 2:11s on Thursday testing. But right now, let's see, the time he's got to aim for still is that 2:16 by way of a benchmark from Q1. You're not taking a grid from Q1 and Q2, they're completely separate, but it does give an indication of whether this is getting faster and faster. Hosokawa into the Casio triangle. In the background there you saw running way out wide Jukichu, but up towards the end of the lap now comes Hosokawa. He'll break the beam, and the time that he does is a 2:15, straight away better than anybody all day, 2:15.613. So again, partly because the road is drier, partly because these are the pros against the AMs, the derogated faster drivers, more experienced drivers, higher graded drivers. You can expect the times to be better, and there's evidence of it. So Hosokawa goes quickest, number 71 here, which is another of the Supras, Masayuki Ueda, coming up towards the timing line. Number 71 then comes through, and that car will go over the timing line. Ueda goes through. For reasons unknown, that car doesn't offer up a time. It's got a transponder glitch, maybe. Now it has appeared on the screen. So it might have a transponder issue, but I don't remember seeing that car in Q1 either, which slightly puzzles me. So 71 is now being driven by Masayuki Ueda, Masayoshi Oyama would have driven in Q1. His name is still on the timing screen, but I don't remember seeing 8 cars in the first session. So, question mark over 71. Right now, anyway, the man to watch is becoming Sunako Jukichu, who makes the run just about up towards the curb there as he comes through Spoon Curve and accelerates now out the other side of it, again using all of the real estate now on the short blast up towards the 130R and then towards the Casio Triangle, speed building on this back stretch, as it's known. So the BMW showing good pace. Up to the top of the times now has gone Shinya Hosokawa, 2 minutes 15.613 as we'd seen, and he's going quicker again with 2 purples on his next lap. Jukichu runs wide then, coming out of the 130R and into the Casio Triangle. He's also dropped time in that middle sector. We're already down to just 6 more minutes of this part of the session to go. So Jukichu comes through, and where does the BMW blend in? It goes 4th on a 2 minutes 18. So Jukichu, Sunako Jukichu in the M2 CSR BMW. I suspect you might see a few more BMWs given the pace that this car has got, and the BMW Team Studi as an entrant has been a loyal supporter of this championship over the years. Now Hosokawa has gone yet faster, as you can see, 2 minutes 12.848 in the Mercedes, so getting yet quicker. Number 33 is Shinya Hosokawa. The number 14 Mercedes, which Brian Lee was driving earlier on, that now handed over to Hideto Yasuoka, and Yasuoka is only 6th, but we haven't really seen a proper flying lap out of him. We're about to, because in the sectors he's looking pretty good. Hideto Yasuoka, another driver with British racing experience. He began in the BRDC single-seater championship in 2002, championship out of which initially in single-seater terms came Nick Tandy, for example, but it was a glorified school championship, but did offer drivers the chance to learn at Silverstone and then go racing. He progressed to Formula Ford and then, as in the main championship, and then into Formula Renault Asia. Yasuoka then having a couple of years in the UK before coming back to race in Asia, but the experience served him in good stead. This looks like a decent lap. Again, we're aiming for a 2:12 or better, and Yasuoka's Mercedes then rides the curb, takes a big bite of curb there coming into the Casio Triangle. This is where the road drops downhill, charges you down towards the timing line, which is at the top end of the pit straight. Over the line he goes, and a 2 minutes 14.845 puts that car 4th fastest. So Hideto Yasuoka improving, but there's more to find, I think, with 2 more laps to ring out of it. You see the car squirming then as it comes down towards the first corner, up to the end of the lap, and the pit lane, by the look of it, will come Hosokawa. So Shinya Hosokawa in. And his 33 Mercedes then. So that, I would suspect, is the end of his session, 2 minutes 12. We've only got 3 minutes on the clock. I would be surprised if he's got time now for an outlap and a flying lap. So Hosokawa comes in, and the team potentially saying that's all we need to do here. So out gets Shinya Hosokawa, and yeah, fist bumps, happy team, work done. Now that might be a little bit previous, because although they are starting to celebrate, we've got an absolute best within the first sector being offered up now by Katsuyuki Hironaka in the Toyota. There it is. So this car, having said it was going well, it's now dropped time in the middle sector. So Katsuyuki Hironaka comes towards the end of the lap. He has been racing in Super GT most recently, but he knows about sports cars as well from his Zytec LMP2 exploits in the World Endurance Championship. Hironaka then has got to try and dig deep here to get the car onto class pole. 1.4 seconds back, comes across the line, 2:13.3, narrows the margin to half a second back now, but Hosokawa remains at the top of the times. There's still a lap time that can be dragged out of the car, though. There's time for 1 more lap. In fact, there's time for 2, actually. He'll get across the line before the flag comes out twice here, if he needs it. So Hironaka presses on. Now also still storming along, number 14 Mercedes, which of Hideto Yasuoka has also dropped time in the middle sector. Now, why is it that all of a sudden people are losing time in the mid part of the lap? The second sector is the one that takes you from the hairpin all the way round to the approach to 130R. It might be that Spoon Curve is catching them out, and again a big slide there under braking. Yasuoka up to third by the end of that lap, 2 minutes 14.461. The Comet Mercedes comes to the end of the lap. Masaki Fuji. This is the car that's 8th and is slowest, in fact, at the moment. But as it breaks the beam now, that car stays 8th, but goes quicker, 226.782. Real spread of times here across the GT4 entries. But at the moment, Masaki Fuji, another graduate of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia, and indeed Ferrari Challenger Asia Pacific prior to that, he is the slowest. Right, how is Katsuyuki Hironaka getting on? Well, rapidly is the answer. Hironaka second fastest, but he's dropped time in the first sector of this lap. So is this a lap just to give the tyres a breather and he'll push on again? Well, it's marginal doing that because there wasn't that much time in hand. If he was absolutely flat out, he could possibly squeeze 2 more laps out of the session, but let's just see. He's got to get back to the line within half a minute as he comes now up towards 130R. I still don't think this is a push lap. He's backed off completely in the middle sector. Maybe Hironaka has decided that enough is enough and he's not going to be able to find that half a second. He's going to be on the front row of the class, so that might just do him. Let's see. He's ignored pit in. So Hironaka is going to have a go, is he? Nope, does pit in the end. So there are 2 options to come into the pit lane. There's the F1 version and there's the one we're using, and he takes that one. So in he comes, Hironaka out of the session. So a good effort in the Supra to get it onto the front row, but the front engine car, which has become increasingly rapid in GT4 racing, doesn't defeat the Mercedes of Shinya Hosokawa. So the checkered flag is out, the lights go red on the pit straight. There aren't that many on the track, actually. The majority have already bailed. In comes the McLaren. And finally, a car takes the flag on the track, and it's Hideki Yasuoka who goes third fastest then, 2:14.121, and an absolute best in the last sector, interestingly. So the road is still drying, which is good news for the GT3 teams. So at the end of the session, Shinya Hosokawa goes fastest. Still pressing on here is Masaki Fuji in the Mercedes, but he's dropped time in sector 1. He's gained a bit in sector 2. But I'm not convinced this is necessarily going to catapult him up the order, because he needs to find 9 seconds even to get ahead of Jukichu, who's been a bit underwhelming in the BMW. And I just wonder whether Jukichu had a problem because he was so far adrift of the pace. It makes him a bit fearful for the BMW in that session. Over the line goes Fuji, who does improve, does a 2:26.1, but is still quite a good amount away from the top times in that session. So at the end of Q2 in GT4 then, it is provisional pole position for number 33, the Mercedes in the hands of Shinya Hosokawa, and then second fastest is number 12, Toyota of Katsuyuki Hironaka. Third quickest, number 14, which is the GTO Racing Team, Hideki Yasuoka, Mercedes. And there, the third of the Toyotas that we have gained really for the second part of qualifying, the Akiland racing car, Masayuki Ueda, at the wheel of it, 6th fastest, that car. So Ueda comes down the pit road, as they all do, and just to prove that the session was a faster one, 2 minutes 12.848 being the gun time. So it is Shinya Hosokawa the fastest from second quickest, the Koshido Racing entry of Katsuyuki Hironaka, and then third, Hideki Yasuoka. Fourth was Matsutaka Inoue, nephew of ex-Grand Prix racer Taki Inoue in the McLaren. Good effort. Fifth quickest, although bailing early, was Tatsuya Tanigawa's Mercedes. 6th fastest, number 71 Supra of Masayuki Ueda. Only 7th, with a problem maybe, Sunako Jukichu. And then 8th, really struggling for pace, Masaki Fuji in the Mercedes. All except number 14 run in the Japan Cup out of GT4 because Brian Lee comes from Chinese Taipei, from Taiwan, therefore isn't eligible. It's got to be all Japanese drivers. Quick look at the highlights then of the session, which was, as we've been making the point, on a drying road, and out first was Sonako Jukichu, but in the end the BMW not being able to replicate its earlier good pace. It was offline early, letting other rather more committed drivers go charging past, and as the session started to get into its stride, the first car to really show proper pace was the number 12 Toyota in the hands of Katsuyuki Hironaka. Hironaka out of Silver AM categorization, pressing on and looking good as the session wound through. Second fastest he would be in the end, but that car certainly showing excellent speed in his hands and giving us real optimism for a very, very close and competitive GT4 fight, especially if there's a disparity between the Silvers and the AMs. The cars are going to rise and fall through the order depending on who is behind the wheel, all part of the fascination of double driver races. The Toyota accelerating out of the final corner, the last bend over the line, and that car second with the McLaren in the background in the hands of Masataka Inoue, also starting to pick up its pace and looking more of a threat as that session went through. The BMW though of Jukichu struggling for pace. This didn't help. Big slide at 130R, putting him off the road. Proof of partly how hard drivers were trying, and also the fact that the road was still damp and ready to catch out the unwary. So Jukichu throwing everything at that lap in the M2, but just being caught out, and the TC Invitation class car eventually dropping to 7th in the category in Q2. A big bite of curb from Hideki Yasuoka as he took the Mercedes up to 3rd in the times from the GTO Racing Team stable, but there was nothing he could do about the top two, ending up 7/10 away from Hironaka's Toyota, 1.2 seconds back from Hosokawa, who tops GT4 qualifying then. And right at the very end, an improvement coming from the Mercedes in the hands of Masaki Fuji, but Fuji's car again really struggling for pace relative to everybody else. He brought the time down, but will be at the back of GT4 as we now get set for GT3. The cars heading to the end of the pit lane, ready to go. The best time that we had was in the official practice session yesterday, which was the 3 o'clock start, finished just after 5:15. The best lap time coming out of Kai Cozzolino, and it was a 2 minutes 1.4. That offers you a bit of a benchmark, but we'll see whether the teams can go yet quicker than that. The first of the 2 races, the one that we're qualifying for, is going to be at 1:30 this afternoon, so they don't get too much time between now and racing. So if there's a problem, the teams are really going to be up against it, but we will get the cars out on track, and this promises to be another absolutely fascinating brace of 15-minute periods here, with a good quality entry, a much bigger entry of course than we had for the Sepang races. So for example, Team Uematsu, there will be Tadai Uematsu himself, who will go first in the number 2 McLaren. There, number 60 is the car to be started by Kei Nakanishi. That's the LM Corsa entry. 888 already at the end of the pit lane. No argument as to which team runs that. The very successful 888 Supercars squad, and it is going to be Abu Ibrahim, his first season of racing, that will go first. The car shared by Jasmine Jafar. Comet Racing number 7, the Yusuke Yamasaki Honda NSX GT3 is ready to go. Very spectacular liveries as ever in the Asian market, whether it's in this, whether it's in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo that we've seen in the past, although that championship's still yet to kick-start itself. But always there's 2 more offerings. Really interesting paint schemes. 22, which is the X-Works car Now, there's a bit of a saga attached to all of this because David Punn has been brought into it. Number 91 Audi, which he was driving, caught fire yesterday. The damage too great for this weekend. It's a bit of a race to get it sorted for Fuji next weekend. So David Punn and Sean Tong would have driven one car, Marchie Lee and Sandy Stuvik the other. Sandy Stuvik stays in 22, but David Punn is brought across into that entry, and he will drive in this session, the Chinese driver, and it's a Pro-Am car now. Right, thumbs up for the drivers as they're in the pit lane under the watchful eye of Stefan Rattel and Benjamin Franasovici. The championship's manager is the D-Station Racing Satoshi Hoshino Aston Martin, ready to go. The team set to wave that car for the 61-year-old down the pit lane. Hoshino, who's been racing in all sorts of things, whether it's Ferraris, Porsches, sports cars in the States, the World Endurance Championship, you name it, inveterate enthusiast, and good to have him back on this grid as we get set then to release the cars. .9:22 is the start time, so we're about a minute away, and some of the teams eager to get out first, and that's why they are, as you can imagine, queued up at the end of the pit lane. Others just biding their time and will be released from the pit garages when the teams are happy. The GT3 races that we had in Malaysia, two different winners. The first one being won by the number 99 Mercedes, which is the car of Jeffrey Ibrahim and Nick Foster, the Australian driver that runs with a British licence. And then the second race, Adrian De Silva and Earl Bamber in the EBM, Earl Bamber's team, Giga Racing car. Now that is not here. It was only ever going to do Sepang because of the Malaysian origin of Adrian De Silva, and it has therefore been renumbered as 18. It's got two different drivers, Kandati Kusiri and Tanat Satrantirakul, and moves therefore into the silver class rather than being a Pro-Am. So the car is here, but different drivers. That was the winning car in the second of the races that we had at Sepang. Right, we're in business then, and it's the brace of Mercedes out of AAA JMR that come out first. The very distinctive number 30 Porsche of Hiroaki Nagai from the Porsche Center Okazaki comes through. Number 5 BMW rumbles down the pit lane, the plus with BMW Team Studi car, Tomohide Yamaguchi at the wheel of it. More Porsches there in the background, the AMAC car, AMAC Motorsport of AMAC himself, Andrew McPherson, with Ben Porter, his regular co-driver, and the pair of them have been together for many, many seasons now, whether it's been racing in the Asian Championships or they've been rather forced back home to race in Super GT Australia and GT World Challenge Australia. They got a 5th and a 7th out of the races in Sepang, and the Porsche then on track now. So again, 15 minutes, these are the faster cars, and with the road drier, it should be a faster session all round. The very smart BMW, the new for this year M4 GT3, Tomohide Yamaguchi driving now, but Japan's first Le Mans winner, Saiji Ara, will take over that car from the regular Super GT racer. Again, it's the AM who goes first in 888. There you can see the Abu Ibrahim car and Jasmine Jafar to take over. So 888, 6th and 2nd it was in Malaysia in terms of race results. And straight away, drivers getting on with the job here, trying to get the warmth into the Pirelli tyres as quickly as they can. His Highness Prince Abu Bakr Ibrahim, but Abu Ibrahim for short for the purposes of race entries, comes then now out of the spoon curve, makes the run towards 130R. The Porsche there, you can see, number 30, which has got, for the purposes of Q1, Hiroaki Nagai behind the wheel of it. Got to say, finding a likely candidate for the pole position time in Q1, certainly in GT3. very, very difficult indeed. Find the entry list, find a pin. Some of it might be where you are in relation to the checkered flag. Onto a flying lap goes the very experienced, very successful Hiroshi Hamaguchi. Goes through first of all. Hamaguchi, number 19 Lamborghini, we've seen a lot of in Europe, winning Pro-Am in the GT World Challenge Sprint and Endurance Cups. He was also the GT winner in the Motorsport Games, if you think back to the rather wet 2019 Vallelunga event, and it's good that the Motorsport Games should be back in October at Paul Ricard. 1 and 2 here, trying to slow right down in order to let the traffic go, including Tadao Uematsu. And behind him, number 22, David Punn, also letting the traffic go as best they can. You can see them weaving around, getting the warmth into the tyres. It looks very long distance, this, doesn't it? Really gloomy. The headlights piercing the darkness as they come across the line. 11.5 minutes of the session still remain, so you can see how much you lose with an outlap, even in these quick cars. The road, of course, a lot busier now as well. We've got 15 of them out on track in GT3. It would have been 16, but for the flammable Audi that we lost yesterday. Right, so 888 then, which is the car of Abu Ibrahim, comes towards the climb up the hill. Out of the hairpin. Expect those out of the Silver Cup potentially to be the faster, but some of that's going to depend on the bravery of driver relative to the dampness offline and also traffic, I guess, as the 888 JMR Mercedes then accelerates up towards 130R. They're just up the road ahead. Number 30 Porsche also looking quick. Hiroaki Nagai. Just going back to number 22 Audi, because it's been a driver change after the event started, it will have to start from the back of the grid anyway. David Punn starting at the back of the GT3 part of race 1, come what may. So no matter what the time that he does, the car, because of this change of driver, is going to have to start at the back of the class. Right, target time set by Hiroshi Hamaguchi, 2 minutes 6.027. So again, we're some way off the dry times of yesterday, but it's not a bad opening salvo. Up towards the end of the lap here comes number 99 Mercedes, which is the Jeffrey Ibrahim car, and that goes third. The Mercedes then, that's 2 minutes 9.231. So the Royal Ibrahim brothers second and third at the moment. Abu ahead of Jeffrey. 99, the car shared by Nick Foster, who, as we'll come to, has got pole form here, having been on pole for the Suzuki 10 hours back in 2018. There is number 22 Audi, then David Punn goes across the line. Looks great, that car, in the very colourful livery that it operates under, but it will have to start, as I say, at the back of the class, the Audi Sport Asia Team X-Works car. With Sandy Stuvik, though, as a quick co-driver, that's going to be one to watch come the race, absolutely. Also, the pace of David Punn in this session, little good will it do him, but it will be interesting to see where he is able to get that car to, because David's another experienced driver. Came from Formula Renault into the GT World Challenge Asia GT4 class. He's also raced in the Ferrari Challenge, but relatively new to GT3 machinery. Important to get him into the event, even if it's in a different car, just to give him the seat time. Very frustrated Marchi Lee and likewise Sean Tong having to stand down as they've made one entry out of two, but David Punn here makes his way from the Degma curve under the bridge, which is that flyover, and then towards the hairpin, the uphill hairpin. Road tightens as it climbs. It is a place you can overtake, and then you get back onto the power into the 200R, and that in turn takes you towards Spoon Curve. The Suzuka circuit much more undulating than perhaps you might anticipate, but great hit with the drivers. And here then is David Punn. Comes now through Spoon Curve, turns 13 and 14. You can see how the road is still damp, but it is drying. Biggest problem yesterday, late in the afternoon after the rain had come, was the humidity. It is still Hamaguchi then the fastest, 2 minutes 3.6. He's got the time down to now. From up to second fastest, the EBM Giga Racing Porsche of Kandati Kusiri. Kusseri's done a 2 minutes 3.7, so only a tenth between them. And David Pan's efforts, as I say, are as he hits the curb and gets all sideways. Not going to put him up to the top because he's got this effective grid penalty to serve. One car that's been out late and hasn't really got into its stride yet, number 27 of Naoki Yokomitsu. That's not done even an out lap time yet. David Pan goes through 9th fastest, so it's a good effort this actually. David Pan, to be fair to him, is learning quickly, and that should stand him in good stead. He'll have to make progress early on in the race really to give both him and Sandy Stuvik a chance. Kusseri's Porsche, absolute best in the middle sector last time, but now Hiroshi Hamaguchi going faster still. So 2 minute 3s for the top two, and the venerable Satoshi Hoshino is 3rd fastest now in the D station Aston Martin. There is Hiroshi Hamaguchi, number 19, the BMAX Engineering Lamborghini in its Orange 1 FFF Racing Team colours from its European campaign. I suspect it's the same chassis, and Hamaguchi, traffic allowing, should go yet faster here. Can we get him into the 2 minute 2s? Potentially, as he has got the car guy Ferrari just up the road ahead of him, of Kimura, but across the line goes Hamaguchi, and it is into the 2 minute 2s now, 2 minute 2.179. Hamaguchi getting quicker all the time. Treble 7, the car guy racing Takeshi Kimura Ferrari, is now 12th fastest. Another improvement has just come from the Yusuke Yamasaki Comet Racing Honda. That's gone into the top 10. And Nagai in number 30 Porsche up to 3rd, the Porsche Center Okazaki entry. Now Hamaguchi in danger of being held up here because he's managed to catch Kimura and through the snake. That's not where you want to be. Road climbs here as you turn up the hill, and Hamaguchi does commit to the inside. Those couple of years or so racing in Europe really have taught him many lessons to live in good stead, and Hamaguchi, using all that experience to very good effect, goes through them, picks up track position, tries to clear the traffic. We'll see in a moment whether it's cost him in the first sector. It has, yes, he's dropped a little bit of time being 1.4 seconds, so right off this lap for Hamaguchi. He needs to stay ahead of the Ferraris. He's still got to push to an extent, but it's not going to be an improvement, so he needs to stay ahead of the traffic. David Pern into the top 10 in the times now, 2 minutes 6. So he's getting on with the job. And also an improvement has just come from number 16, which is the ABSA Motorsport car of Koizumi Hiroshi. That's the McLaren, as you look at Hamaguchi still pressing on. Hamaguchi for BMAX Engineering, although the car has now been offered a new team name of Refueling Ambitions. And two absolute best have just been posted now by Yokozimo. So, by Yokomitsu. Late out into the session, but number 27 then, the Yogibo Racing Ferrari of Naoki Yokomitsu, up to the top of the times, 2 minutes 1.258. So first proper flying lap, shrewd move possibly, let everybody else go, set a benchmark, and if they can do that time 9/10 quicker than anybody else on just one flying lap, and possibly save rubber, might be quite a good call for later on in the day. So number 27, Naoki Yokomitsu to the top. There into the top 10 now also is the Honda. But Yokomitsu, again, another driver with Formula 3 experience, as well as plenty of GT experience, up to the top by now a 1/10 of a second from Candide Kusseri. We've got a car which is Santoso, number 8, having a lap time deleted for track limits. So that is Satiwan Santoso in the Porsche that he shares with Reid Harker. That is now the fastest car in the session. So that is Yokomitsu. Naoki Yokomitsu in the Yogibo Racing entry to the top. And looks like he's backed out of the next lap. So having established the time, he has no further need really to push on. And he's down in the first sector, as you can see, with that little orange next to the driver's name, suggesting he's gone slower. Candide Kusseri, in the meantime, in number 18 Porsche, the next driver to watch, although again he's down in the first sector now. Are we looking at drivers having given it their best shot and now electing to stop early, so they give their faster co-driver a chance to get on board and get set for Q2. Let's see what Yokomitsu decides to do. Yokomitsu, Kusiri, Hamaguchi, Nagai, Santosa, Yamaguchi is the top 6. Through the Casio triangle come the Ferraris, and in the background is the 777 car guy car of Kimura. Up to the line though, 27 will go for another shot at this. Yokomitsu goes through. There, number 30 is 5th fastest now. This is the car of Nagai, Hiroaki Nagai. White Dayglow Porsche goes through, 5th fastest, it stays. Didn't improve on that lap. Far more yellows than greens on the timing screen at the moment in the sectors, suggesting that people aren't being able to find the absolute pace. Another of the rapid portions you can see here, going through. That's the Kandati Kusiri car that is 2nd fastest, and 0.159 of a second back. But again, that didn't improve on its last lap. It was a much, much slower lap. Satoshi Hoshino comes through in the D station. Aston, that's dropped to 10th now, but Hoshino 2 minutes 3.971 does improve. In its very British racing green colours, the Aston Martin goes through the first corner, heads towards the Snake. 1 more lap to ring out of the session for Hoshino. A minute on the clock, that is all. Now that's Hamaguchi, who is down to 3rd. His last lap was another slow one. We had 2 11s, 12s and 13s out of the top 3 drivers, rather than 2 minute 1s or 2 minute 2s that they were doing earlier. So they all elected to back right out of it. Possibly just to give the tyres a breather for one last shot. But actually, even on the next lap, Yokomitsu is down in sector 1, so is Kusiri, so is Hamaguchi. So I can't see either of them being able to improve. There is 777 that has gone up to 4th now. So having been at the bottom of the GT3 times, Takeshi Kimura catapults himself to 4th. This, again, is a potential winning car because Kimura is quick, and so also is Keiko Zalino, who is his co-driver. And Kimura, the 51-year-old Japanese driver, goes through, stays 4th on that lap. Knows about Ferraris, not only from racing in the Asian Le Mans Series, but this year as well he's had some European Le Mans Series outings. He's another graduate of Lamborghini Super Trofeo in Asia, as the checkered flag is out, and Kandati Kusiri in the Porsche comes through the triangle, rattles up onto the curb, but Kusiri then about to break the beam. He's not going to improve though, because he was down in sectors 1 and 2, and as he goes across the line now, that lap is a 2 minutes 2, about 6/10 off his earlier best, so no improvement coming then on that lap for Kandati Kusiri. And number 8 Porsche is also slow right down, that being the car of Santoso, who is heading for the pits. Yes, so he backs out a bit early. Saito One Santoso, he will give that car over next to Reid Harker. So 2 minutes 1.258 from Naoki Yokomitsu is the top time. There the Porsche, number 8 down the pit road. So the last few on the track, including David Punn, take the flag. You can, to a degree, understand why the AMs stay out that little bit longer, because it's maximising the track time, but for many of the teams, they've already elected to come in and do that driver switch. So Naoki Yokomitsu, who got pole for the equivalent race at Sepang, doing it again. So Silver's 1st and 2nd, is perhaps to be expected, and 0.159 of a second being the margin between them. So the last few cars taking the flag in the pits. And the teams quickly now go to work to make any adjustments required to do the driver change, ready for 9:44 when we will get the second part of qualifying underway. There down the pit lane is the LM Corsa Kai Nakanishi, driven Ferrari 488 GT3. Shigekatsu Akitaka will take that car over for the second part of qualifying. These are the results at the end of the first part. For Q1, so Naoki Yokomitsu is the fastest, 2 minutes 1.258 from Kandate Kosiri. And then third, Hiroshi Hamaguchi. Fourth quickest in the end was treble 7, which is Takeshi Kimura. Fifth fastest was the Porsche of Hiroaki Nagai, and the top 6 rounded out by number 8 of Satiwan Santosa. And at the foot of the times was Andrew McPherson in the AMAT Motorsport Porsche. The number 18 Porsche, second fastest after an off yesterday at the 130R corner. It did a lot of damage to that car, and they were working until very, very late into the night. So the EBM Giga Racing team has done an outstanding job to get that car back up and running, and oh so close to pole position as well. But it is Yogibo Racing then that tops the times at the end of Q1 for GT3. Remember, that's going to be affecting the grid for today's race. David Pun in number 22 was 14th fastest, but will start at the back of the class in the Audi Sport Asia Team X-Works entry by dint of that car having had the driver change. As I say, we've lost an Audi, we've made 1 entry out of 2, and because that driver change happened after the event had officially started, then so it becomes mandatory for the car to start at the back for race 1. Quick look at the highlights then of the first part of qualifying as everybody made their way out onto the circuit, with the Porsche eager to go. First up in the hands of Hiroaki Nagai. Quite a few drivers being ever so cautious first up as they made their way onto the circuit. Andrew McPherson in the Porsche on track. What enormous rear wing that the Porsches carry these days, evident, but as the road dried, so people started to have more confidence to press on, including David Pun, learning about the Audi number 22, the Audi Sport Team X-Works entry, and the car getting itself to 14th ultimately. Treble 7 Ferrari yo-yoed a bit, but in the end Kimura put it 4th. Hiroshi Hamaguchi was the first pace setter though. Hamaguchi in the Lamborghini, underlining his good pace by putting that car up the pointy end of the order. Hamaguchi to the timing line, and although the car would drop to 3rd ultimately within Q1, still a good effort from the experienced Japanese racer, despite finding himself a little bit caught up in the traffic. Treble 7 Ferrari of Takeshi Kimura slightly impeding him early on in his efforts. Number 7 Honda though was another quick car, the Comet Racing entry of Yusuke Yamasaki, and the AM entry staving off the challenge of the D station Aston Martin of Satoshi Hoshino that had the road to itself, with the Aston boomed past the pits. Also looking rapid, number 5, which was the Plus Racing Tomohiro Yamaguchi entry, the BMW coming over the timing line, but for 4th in the times, Takeshi Kimura's Ferrari for Car Guy took the checkered flag and put itself very much in the mix going into the first race of the weekend. Number 30 Porsche, there or thereabouts, the Porsche Center Okazaki entry of Hiroshi Nagai. But a really good job by the EBM Giga Racing team. The repaired Porsche in the hands of Kandate Kosiri comes out here, as you can see, from that last corner up to the timing line, 2nd fastest, and within a couple of tenths of the class pole position. So Kandate Kosiri repaying the team's hard work very impressively. Right, the second part of qualifying is imminent. We await the instruction from the race director to get things underway. Countdown continuing, and so the lights go green. We are in business. 15 minutes once more, same cars, different driver. 2 minutes 1.258 is now the target time, and in theory this should be the best of the 4 really. You've got the quickest cars with the quickest drivers now across the board. So Nick Foster goes out first, ahead of the number 7 Honda of Yorikatsu Suzuka. Nick Foster, pole position winner here for the Suzuki 10 Hours back in 2018 in a Ferrari. And you can see as he jinks the car left and right, desperately now trying to find a little bit of traction, a little bit of warmth in the tyres, get everything operating so that he can press on in the remaining time. First out means that you are ahead of everybody. It also means you're the pioneer. People behind can see where the grip might be. You've got to explore it. It also, though, means that as you start your first flying lap, you might get caught up with those still coming out of the pit lane, who are onto their first onto their first out lap. You're on a flying lap, so you get caught up with slower cars. Suzuka, then Reid Harker in number 8, another man to watch. Reid Harker in the EBM Giga Racing Porsche. So there's Nick Foster up to the hairpin. The Mercedes turns its way through, climbs the hill now. So Nick Foster, the Australian driver, with a British licence, but he's very much an Australian, comes then up towards Spoon Curve, still trying to get the warmth in the tyres. You get the feeling that he absolutely wants to try and maximise the first run in this car before the road gets busy around him, so the team has been on its toes getting him out first. So 99 Mercedes that Nick Foster helms for the moment. A win and a 5th out of the races in Malaysia. Of course, by winning the first, they got the pit stop penalty for the second, which slightly affected the race result. Jeffrey Ibrahim, the co-driver, has gone first in Q1, and Nick Foster then, the 2015 Australian Carrera Cup champion. We saw him racing in the British Formula Ford Series many years ago before he went back down under for more single-seater racing, but has made a real name for himself driving in sports cars and GT cars. He's raced at Le Mans, for example. He's been in the World Endurance Championship. He's been a race winner at Laguna Seca within the Intercontinental GT Challenge, racing the Nürburgring 24 Hours this year. Nick Foster then onto a flying lap. Now the McLaren comes through with Yudai Uchida at the wheel of it. Number 2, about to start a flying lap. Number 19, Lamborghini, having taken over from Hiroshi Hamaguchi, is Mineki Okura. And Okura comes then now out of the last curve up towards the timing line. Over the beam he goes and onto a flying lap now. So it's the end of the next one that's going to be really interesting to start to piece together the order. Still looks remarkably dark and gloomy, doesn't it, on that pit straight. You can see how many damp patches there are still lying on the road. Mineki Okura then in the BMAX Engineering Lamborghini through the first curve, was already halfway around the lap is Nick Foster, who therefore is establishing bests in sectors. Comes then under the flyover, under the bridge, under the crossover, and then to the hairpin. So he sets the target within the first sector of the lap. Still feeling for traction then as he applies the power, drags the car up the hill, heads then towards the Spoon Curve as you look at number 19. Mineki Okura's Lamborghini goes through. Number 30 Porsche, now in the hands of Yuta Kanimura. Kanimura, the silver Grady driver, that's another Pro-Am entry. So there is Mineki Okura going through. Okura in the Lamborghini. Regular in touring cars more than GT cars, in fact, he's Okura in TCR Japan, in which he's raced for the last 3 seasons. Right, Nick Foster then, he's about to offer up the first flying lap time. Is this going to instantly go better than what we saw in Q1? It might do, you know, because the 2 minutes 1 was the best we got at the end of that session, and he does a 2 minute 0.496. We should be able, I would have thought, to get these cars well below 2 minutes come the end of the session as it continues to dry. 2 minutes 1, 2 minutes 2 yesterday, so that is the best lap of the weekend now in the official part of the weekend. Nick Foster 2 minutes 0.496 for 888 JMR, 888 Roland Dane's team in Australia that Jamie Whincup now will have a big part to play in the future of, but it's a team that's a few years back expanded its GT element. Roland Dane, who was collaborator in the UK and founded 888 along with Derek Warwick and Ian Harrison, and made the decision to head to Australia and did everything absolutely right. Bought the right team, the right people, the right drivers, made a massively successful, as it then was, V8 supercars operation that became the benchmark team for season after season after season. There's no suggestion that that couldn't happen in GT racing either. So Nick Foster the fastest, but up to second then goes the number 2 McLaren of Yuhei Uchida, the 2020 Ferrari Challenge Asia Pacific Pirelli AM class champion, Super GT racer, Lamborghini racer, now McLaren racer. Uchida then up to second, and Okia in the Lamborghini was third, but now Taner Satarentirokul in the repaired EBM Giga Racing Porsche has gone up to third. The Thai driver, Taner Satarentirokul, who we've seen most recently in Europe. In fact, he drove in the Fanatec GT endurance race at Paul Ricard. And another change has just happened. Is Sandy Stuvik up to second in number 22 Audi. Stuvik for pole is a real possibility, but he's done a 2 minutes 2. Still Nick Foster, the only man that's done anything below 2 minutes 1. Jasmine Jafar, I would offer you, as another candidate for pole position, and yet another would be Saiji Ara, Japan's first Le Mans winner in the number 5 BMW. So an awful lot to shake out of this session yet, as Kate Cozzolino goes on to pole position into the 159s in the Ferrari, the car guy entry, 159.850. Kate Cozzolino, if you think back a few years to the equivalent championship, as it then was GT Series Asia, he won GT race and Lamborghini races over the same weekend at Fuji. Kate Cozzolino we saw quite a bit of in Europe a few years back, but he's come back, the Japanese-Italian driver, to his Japanese origins and has done a lot of successful racing here. Cozzolino then 159.850. That becomes the benchmark. And that Ferrari looking very, very impressive indeed. 4th and 1st in the 2 grids. Looking at number 7 Honda going through, which is now the car of Yorikatsu Suzuka at the wheel, the Honda NSX. We don't see enough of those in Europe, but in the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia entry, good to have it on the grid. Reid Harker's Porsche goes third. This is Kate Cozzolino, who might go quicker again here. He's done 2 absolute bests. Can we get Kate Cozzolino into the 158 maybe? It is doable. Finding 0.8 of a second isn't easy, I'll grant you that, but if anybody can do it, Kay might be the man. Comes then now up towards the timing line, and a 58.745 is an absolutely mega lap. 3 purples, 3 absolute bests across the sectors. Massive effort that. Kate Cozzolino then by 1.6 seconds goes faster still over Nick Foster. Reid Harker still third, but Kate Cozzolino then up to the top of the times, and he stays there and goes even faster with still 7 minutes on the clock. That is a really, really impressive effort. So 2 minutes 1.2 from the first session. That's been absolutely annihilated now by Kate Cozzolino. Brilliant job that. The yellow highlighter pen car guy Ferrari comes through the snake, but that is going to take some beating. Nick Foster second, Sandy Stuvik third then, Reid Harker fourth in the times. We've still got laps to come though for 1 or 2. Jasmine Jafar now goes third, 2 minutes 0.493 on his first flying lap. The D station Aston Martin here in the hands of Tomonobu Fuji comes towards the end of the lap, and Fuji currently yet to do a lap time, so we'll see what he can do here. Also to the line, let's just get the Honda through first of all. Number 7 of Yorikatsu Suzuka, and Suzuka goes through and currently then 14th fastest in that car. Right, the D station Aston Martin was looking good. How good, though, is the next question. Tomonobu Fuji at the wheel, as you see there, the Ben Porter driven Porsche. Ben currently is 11th, but looking good in the sectors here. The W is for William Ben Porter, but Ben as he's known. So Ben Porter up towards the timing line, and 11th he was. Does he improve? Stays 11th. The lap time is better though, 2 minutes 3.505. Brings that car a little bit closer to the mix, doesn't it? The AM entry of Andrew McPherson and Ben Porter, stalwarts of this championship and also of GT-style racing in Australia. Right, Nick Foster has pitted. Now, is that because they're going to throw another set of boots at it, or is that because he thinks front row will do? We'll find out. Jasmine Jafar is third, Sandy Stuvik fourth, and up to fifth now, number 30 Porsche of Kamimura. So that's Kei Cozzolino down the pit lane, who is very much the star of qualifying. Really, really impressive effort, that. Door opens and out gets the Japanese driver. So Kei Cozzolino, who really made a name for himself racing Lamborghinis initially, where we first saw him in Europe, but had got a good pedigree of racing in single-seaters prior to that, steps out of the car, and for the moment at least his work is done. We'll see him in the second stint later on. The former Formula 3 racer for the moment is done. Up to second though now is Seiji Ara, so he's 1.5 seconds off Cozzolino. That puts Nick Foster down to third and Jazemin Jaffar down to fourth. Over the line there goes the Aston Martin as Reid Harker has just got up to fourth, number 8 Porsche. 47, Tomonobu Fuji only 14th as the next car to look for here. Number 27 is currently the slowest, as in has not really done a lap time. So it is Kyoto Fujinami at the wheel. Number 60 Ferrari also heads to the line. Wakisaka at the wheel of that car, currently to be found 11th. But 27 Ferrari with Kyoto Fujinami, the man from Tokyo, the 2020 Super GT champion. Should be a very, very quick car indeed, that. And as he gets more familiar with it, the former Formula 3 racer getting himself perhaps up to the pointy end by the end of this session. 3 minutes of which remain. Here is Seiji Ara. He's got to find a second and a half. Was quicker in sector 1, but lost time in sector 2. So the impressively liveried BMW comes up to the line. I don't think it's going to improve its grid position, and it doesn't improve its time either. That was a 2-minute 0.5, 3/10 lost. So over the line goes Ara, but if he can stay on the front row of the grid for the second race, that'll look good. And he's back right out of it, as you can see. So Seiji Ara has done. And Seiji Ara heads for the pit lane. So the man that won Le Mans for Audi, now in the BMW. Now 27 has gone through, and that lap was a gentle start-up lap, 2 minutes 7.051. But now Kyoto Fujinami, very much the man to watch. Fujinami comes then through the snake. He's got the road pretty much to himself. You can see how much he's pushing as the car tries to get away from underneath him. All the while he's trying to push, he's trying to get the tyres to switch on. New tyre this year for GT3 teams from Pirelli, and some cars, some teams, some drivers finding it easier to work with than others. It's one that you need to get your head around. And Kyoto Fujinami trying to extract the most out of it as he comes then now on the run towards the Degner curve, out of which he will drop down the hill, then the climb to the hairpin. Further up the road ahead of him there you can see is Jazemin Jaffar, who is now 5th. And if there's traffic up the road ahead now of Kyoto Fujinami, I just wonder if that's going to go against him. In the first sector, it's a personal best, but not a purple, so not an absolute. It's good, but it's not mega. Sandy Stuvik's Audi pulls to one side there, getting out of the way. Is he with a problem? Is he going to try and let everybody go and get one last lap out of this? If he is, I think he needs to up his pace, because the danger is he misses out. He's got a minute of the session and counting, and he's still got to get to the line. I just wonder whether that Audi might have a problem. Stuvik, one to keep an eye on, possibly. There is Jazemin Jaffar over the brow, and you can see charging along behind him is Kyoto Fujinami. Fujinami, Formula 3 racer in Japan, then Asia, then raced in the Super Formula Lights. It was 2 years ago. He was the GT300 champion within Super GT. He comes into the triangle now. 2 personal bests. Then is this going to get the Ferrari onto the front row of the grid? There's traffic up the road, although that Mercedes clears because it goes into the pit lane. The time has got to be below 2 minutes. It's not. It's 9th only for Fujinami. He'll get one more lap out of the session, which might be the lap. We'll have to wait and see what the first sector tells us. But for Kyoto Fujinami then, one more lap. He's only 9th on the grid as the D-Station Aston Martin will take the checkered flag here of Tomonobu Fuji. Comes through. That got itself up to 7th in the times, that car. So Fuji ends 7th. Not a bad effort, actually. But Keiko Zolino, the only man below 2 minutes and a second and a half clear of the opposition. Absolutely outstanding effort. That is going to make a few people scratch heads, isn't it? So as the flag is out, the last few cars take the run over the line. We didn't get an improvement, I don't think, out of Suzuka in the Honda as he came through. No, we didn't. Here is Ben Porter, number 51 Porsche. Ben is 15th, but no, he's down in the sectors, so I suspect he might well be heading for the pit lane on this lap. We'll see if that's the case, but Ben Porter comes then now into the chicane, or the triangle, as it's known, and bleeds to the pit lane. So Ben Porter comes into the pits. That's his job done for the moment. And what about the number 99 Mercedes? Nick Foster went back out, but I'm not quite sure why, because it's only really been an exploratory lap. It's not looked good in the sectors, and he's missed the cut anyway to get onto a flying lap. So Nick Foster pits at the end of the session 3rd. It looked good to start with. Huge commitment right at the start of the session. And here is 27 Ferrari of Kyoto Fujinami. Now, he has gone quicker in the first sector, but as you see, lost out in the second. So 9th he is. Can Kyoto Fujinami improve as he comes over the timing line? The answer is no. The lap time is a slower one. By 1,000th of a second, he goes slower than his earlier best. So fails to improve by 1,000th of a second. So he's consistent, if nothing else. And Tomonobu Fuji in the Aston Martin, I think, has also backed off. So that's his session effectively done. So let's look at the times at the end of Q2 for Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia. Q2 means the grid for round 4, and it is Keiko Zolino that is the fastest from Seiji Ara, Nick Foster 3rd, Reid Harker 4th, Jasmine Jaffar 5th from Sandy Stuvik and Tomonobu Fuji. 8th fastest in the Porsche was then Yuka Kanemaru, and behind him was the Yogibo Racing Ferrari of Kyoto Fujinami. The top 10 rounded out by number 16, the ABSA Motorsport Kaiti Sawa driven McLaren. 16 cars in total, the slowest of which in GT3 and Q2 was the Comet Racing Honda of Yorikatsu Sujiko. But a really impressive effort by Keiko Zolino, that to get the car to be below 2 minutes, the only driver to achieve that. Very, very impressive effort indeed. So the teams now look forward to the first race that will be underway this afternoon. The race start will be at 1:30. It will be, of course, a 1-hour race with the mandatory pit stops. We'll be on air a little bit before that with the build-up for what promises to be a really good 3rd round of Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, the first round of the Japan Cup, the championship within a championship here, the opening round of Japan Cup at the Suzuka circuit, where the marshals go to work just to make sure that anything that's been dropped on the road or dragged onto the circuit isn't going to be a hazard. And the circuit being swept ready for more action, because there is also the Formula Enjoy series here this weekend. There's Ferrari Challenge Asia Pacific and the N1 Owners' Cup as well. So the 2 Clubmen's Championships are here this weekend too. So the drivers head off to study data, and probably everybody will go off to try and work out how on earth Keiko Zolino did that absolutely outstanding lap. Very, very impressive indeed to get that car to below the 2-minute mark. Keiko Zolino, that I think I said earlier on, was a very, very impressive Lamborghini Super Trofeo racer in Europe. And then we started to see him come back into this part of the world from whence he had come and continue his winning ways. Quick look at the highlights then of Q2 with the number 19 Lamborghini of Mineki Okura going quite well early on, 3rd, but falling away as the session went on. Number 2 McLaren, a car that was 12 in the end, that car of Yudai Uchida, not really being able to get to the desired pace, whereas a really good effort late in the session by Tomonobu Fuji put that car into the top 7 on the grid. Number 7 Honda was struggling though. Suzuka not being able to get much pace out of that car, it seemed. Number 60 Ferrari also a little bit further back than perhaps anticipated. Shigekatsu Wakisaki at the wheel of the LM Corsa Alpine Stars livery at entry. But Kei Cozzolino was an absolute star as he charged that Ferrari to pole position. 1 minute 58.745 being his time. And that car absolutely unstoppable. Kei Cozzolino put an absolutely perfect 2 laps together. Went fastest, went faster again, and then pitted to end the session and also look after the tyres. He only did 4 laps, but it was enough. An out, 2 flyers and an in. The man that looked quick early on was Nick Foster. He ended up 3rd in the Mercedes. Nick Foster having put everything really on the line on his first flying lap, ending the session 3rd fastest. So Ferrari ahead of BMW and then Mercedes for the top 3. Ben Porter ending the session 15th in the AMAT Motorsports Porsche. Ben Porter hustling on towards the end, but not being able to improve as quite a few people seem to lose time towards the very end. The session looked like it had its best around about the halfway point, but Ben Porter still wringing the neck of the Porsche, as you would anticipate. The ex-single-seater driver getting as much out of it as he could. Tomonobu Fuji, 7th in the Aston Martin as he came through, taking the checkered flag, bringing the D-Station car into the equation, ready for racing this afternoon. As the checkered flag came out, but Kei Cozzolino was already parked and out of the car. The one driver that was still trying to do good things was Kyoto Fujinami, but the Super GT champion just could not quite unlock the potential of the Ferrari, and Fujinami ending up 9th fastest, but that could still be a car to watch, I think, when we go racing later on. So, 1:30 local time will be the first of the 2 races this weekend in Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, powered by AWS. We look forward to your company for that. But at the end of a lively qualifying session from all of us at Suzuka, it's goodbye, and we'll see you later for race 1 of the weekend.
SRO Motorsports